Everyone's telling you to stock up before summer ends. Half of them are wrong. Because here's something nobody's saying out loud. Coffee is about to get cheaper. So if you're panic buying pounds of beans this week, stop. I'll show you exactly why later. And it's going to flip how you read every one of these stock up lists. But there are 3 things sitting in your kitchen right now walking straight into a price wall, and one of them is so ordinary you probably bought it this week without thinking twice. It could end up costing you double. Here's what I'm actually doing today. I'm not just handing you a list and sending you to the store. I'm going to show you how to think about your groceries, how to look at any item, and know whether it's about to get expensive or whether it's perfectly safe. Because once you can do that, you'll never need one of these videos again. You'll be reading the grocery store yourself. I think about this a lot, because there was a time when people just knew this stuff. My grandmother didn't have a spreadsheet. She wasn't watching commodity markets. She just knew in her bones that you put food up in summer because winter was coming. She knew which things got scarce and when. She read the weather, she read the season, she watched her garden, and she stocked accordingly. For her, it wasn't fear, it was rhythm. It was just how you ran a household. Somewhere along the way, most of us lost that. We started shopping the shelves like they'd always be full at the same price forever. And for a long time, they were. This video is me trying to give you that instinct back. By the end, you're going to read the grocery store a little more like a farmer would aware, not panicked. Let's start with olive oil. You may have heard prices crashed, and they did down about 30% from that crazy high a couple years back. A lot of people crossed it off their list. But here's the thing about thinking like a farmer. Olive oil doesn't come from a factory you can just switch back on. It comes from trees, old trees, that take years to mature, growing in a handful of regions around the Mediterranean. Olive trees run on a rhythm too, a heavy year then a light year. Add a drought on top of a light year and the trees make less oil. And you can't fix that with a switch. You wait for the next bloom and hope. So when I hear olive oil prices crashed, I don't hear the problem is over, I hear they had one good harvest. The people who actually watch these crops, the International Olive Oil Council and the sources I follow, are already saying the next bloom looks thin. Spain's flowering is down, stocks are low, and what does come in still has to cross an ocean with a tax sitting at the border. Add it up, and the price you see today is the calm water right before the tide turns. I keep a buy signal price in my head, and when oil drops to that number, I buy enough to carry me a few months, because I can see what's coming. That's not hoarding, that's being a few months early instead of a couple days late. That's how I think about one item. Here's the system that runs in my head for everything, 4 questions. And every one of them is really just asking, how would someone who works the land see this? Question 1. Is it imported? If we don't grow or make it here, it's exposed to shipping costs, fuel, or a storm on the other side of the world. A coffee bean crosses an ocean to reach you. A bag of American flour just needs a truck and a couple of states. The farther food travels, the more can go wrong. Question 2. Is it weather dependent? Some foods come from one region and live or die by that region's weather. One drought, one frost, one bad bloom, and the price doesn't tick up, it jumps. Start noticing weather news. A drought in the Mediterranean or a frost in Brazil isn't background noise, it's a price signal months before it hits your shelf. That's reading the sky like a farmer would. Question 3. Is there a tax on it at the border? A tariff is just a tax added to something crossing into the country. I'm keeping politics completely out of this. Politics doesn't help you at checkout. All we need are the mechanics. Where it applies, where it doesn't, and how it slowly works its way onto the shelf price. Question 4. Is it shrinking? Sometimes the price looks the same, but the package quietly got smaller. That's shrinkflation, a price increase wearing a disguise. Once you start looking for it, you can't unsee it. Score each item. Every yes is a point. 0 or 1 point. Relax. 2 points. Start paying attention. 3 or 4. Stock up now. I want to buy while it's still quiet, not later when everyone else is panicking and it's already expensive. I put this whole scoring system on a free 1-page printable for your pantry door, links in the description. Grab it and score along with me. Now, why now? And why summer? 2 reasons, and they stack. First is the calendar. Right now, we've got roughly 12 weeks of summer left before fall sets in maybe a dozen grocery trips. Summer is the quiet season for almost everything we're about to cover, because nobody's thinking about vanilla, pecans, or canned pumpkin in July. The second the weather turns, the whole country starts baking at once, and demand comes roaring back right as uncertainty settles in. This window is your runway, the calmest, cheapest stretch you'll get. Second reason, that border tax timeline. It can take 12 to 18 months for those costs to work through the system and land on your receipt, which means a lot of what got added last year is landing right about now. You're not buying on a rumor, you're buying ahead of something already in the pipeline, just not on the shelf yet. That's the clock. Spend it well. Let's start with foods from one corner of the world, the purest examples of vulnerability. Nothing to do with politics, just geography and weather. First, vanilla. Look how small these bottles are. Almost all the world's vanilla comes from one island, Madagascar. Think about how fragile that is. One cyclone, one bad season in one place, and the price can double. Not creep, double. I learned this the hard way. Replacing a bottle on autopilot and stopping cold in the aisle. Sure, it used to be half the price. Now it permanently lives on my buy list. Since the bottle is small and cheap to store, just cool, dark cabinet 2 or 3 extra bottles cost you nothing in space and protect a real slice of your budget. Next, nuts, almonds, pecans, walnuts, weather sensitive, drought prone, and never actually cheap. Buy them on sale and freeze them. Nuts go rancid from their oils, but the freezer stops that cold, and they'll keep a year or more, baking up fine straight from frozen. Timing matters here too. The second fall hits, holiday baking sends nut prices climbing. Summer's your window. Then honey, real honey. Because bee populations are under constant pressure year-round, and a lot of what's on shelves is imported and exposed. One rough season from getting expensive. But real honey never goes bad. They've found edible honey in ancient tombs, so there's zero downside to a couple extra jars in the pantry. Now the border tax foods. Last fall, a bunch of items got pulled out of border taxes entirely: coffee, cacao, tea. More on that in a minute, but plenty didn't. Italian pasta is one. It sounds ordinary, which is exactly why it caught my eye. There's already a tax on European food generally, and more than a dozen Italian pasta makers face a proposed extra penalty that, if it goes through, could push the combined cost north of 100%. That's specific brands, and it's a proposal, not a done deal. I'm not saying the sky is falling. But if you're loyal to an imported bronze-cut Durham wheat brand, that's the one I'd quietly grab a few extra boxes of, since it stores for years. Domestic pasta is a totally different story, priced fine. Second, almost anything from Mexico. A huge share of your store's fresh produce comes from there, and there's a border tax up to 25% on Mexican goods, unless protected under trade agreements. You obviously can't stock fresh produce since it spoils, but the shelf-stable versions absolutely can go in the pantry: canned tomatoes, jarred salsa, roasted peppers. A deep shelf of canned tomatoes is half my winter cooking. Every soup base and sauce starts there. To be fair, this system runs both ways. Some foods aren't imported or taxed at all, and are still climbing, right here on our own soil. Freezer protein, beef, pork, chicken. This isn't about trade. Beef hit record prices because our national cattle herd is the smallest it's been in decades, and you can't grow a cow overnight. When ranchers thin their herds from drought or feed costs, it takes years to rebuild those numbers. Beef is a slow-moving train, not a fast turnaround. I'm not predicting prices. I just buy a few packages when I see it on sale and tuck it in the freezer, so I'm not stuck with no options later. Here's where discipline actually matters. Because I learned this the hard way. I used to get nervous and overbuy things with no plan, then find them freezer burnt in the back months later. That's not stocking up. That's throwing money in a cold box. The rule that fixed it: everything in my freezer gets dated and rotated. Oldest in front, newest in back, first in, first out. If you're not going to rotate it, don't buy it. Stocking up isn't about more, it's about timing and rotation. If we're just meeting, hi, I'm Cassandra from the blog becomingafarmgirl.com, and I'm here to help you cook with what's on sale, in season, and already on your shelf. Eggs jumped over 37% last year. Homegrown problem. Avian flu. Nothing to do with trade. When flu hits, whole flocks get culled and supply drops off a cliff, and it takes time to rebuild. Still fragile heading into this year. I'm not telling you to hoard eggs, but keep a backup preservation method ready for when they're cheap and plentiful. My favorite. Crack them. Whip with a little air. Freeze in ice cube trays. Pop one out, thaws in a minute or two, and you genuinely can't tell it apart from fresh and scrambled eggs or baking. Spices are next: pepper, paprika, garlic, cinnamon, mostly imported, so there's exposure, but the bigger story is shrinkflation. Jars quietly get smaller a few cents at a time, and nobody notices, because it's never one big jump. Store spices out of direct light, sealed and cool, and buy whole instead of ground. They'll last far longer. Since spices make humble food taste amazing, a deep spice shelf is always worth it. Last, broth and bouillon. Not really a price play. A stocked pantry isn't just built on raw ingredients. It's built on flavor. Broth turns everything else you've put away into an actual dinner instead of a pile of parts. I make and can a lot of my own. But if you don't, this is worth stocking deep. Now I know what you're thinking, Cassandra. This all sounds great. But I can't drop a fortune at the store this week. I agree with you completely.